Welcome back to On the Clock with Krysten Peek. I'm Krysten Peek, NBA draft analyst for Yahoo Sports. I know we told you we weren't going to come back until the next draft cycle, but it's Summer League. We have to talk about these prospects. I'm now joined by Yahoo Sports senior NBA reporter, Jake Fischer. And Jake, here at Summer League, we see the current players, they come and they support the younger guys. We see the owners, we see all the front office people. I'm watching these players to make sure I was right in the way I projected them in mock drafts. And you're here, working the concourse, talking to scouts, talking to executives. What does this time mean to you? Like, what is Summer League for you?
Yeah, I have come to adopt an analogy that Summer League to me has first day of school energy the same time as it has last day of school energy, because the season's ending, but a new season's beginning all at once. And you got people who have been hired to a new job, guys like Will Dawkins and Michael Winger, who are now running the Washington Wizards. You have people who have been fired, people whose contracts have expired.
Yep.
And there's a lot of folks trying to find their next step, trying to reflect and move forward all at once. So that combination of the end and the new all at once has always been kind of like a good opportunity for everyone to come together, compared to the combine is really draft focused,
yes,
showcase midseason.
Serious.
Yeah. It's we're out here, we're scouting, we're this is one thing on our big long calendar. Here's kind of once everyone leaves, most people are going to be heading off to their home market and some vacation time, and the people who still need a job are going to be out here scrambling, but there is some type of finality to what happens after we head out of here.
Do you know what? For me, it's I've been covering these players that are now first year going into their rookie year since they were 15, 16, right? So I look at draft night, it's graduation. And then I come here to Summer League and it's like a family reunion because, yesterday.
First day of school, you're taking pictures around the front step. I got a new backpack.
But even it's the players off the court. It's catching up with Jason Tatum and Anthony Edwards. And Jason said to me, he was with his dad yesterday down on the court. And he said to me, he's like, KP, you're still doing this? You're still covering the young players? Because we were talking about AJ Johnson. His dad is the coach for the Illawarra Hawks. I can't even talk. In the NBL. So his dad is a coach, and we were talking about his player. And he's like, I can't believe you're still doing this. But it's always good to see, the veterans coming here to support. We saw Steph Curry here yesterday. Kate Cunningham was out here with the Detroit Pistons. But let's talk about the players that are on the court. Obviously, we have to start with Victor Wembanyama.
We're obligated to.
Opening night, it was just kind of And I feel like I saw it from the beginning. He looked very stiff in warm-ups. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was a sold-out crowd. He had a lot of off-the-court attention as well. I didn't have Britney Spears and Victor Wembanyama beef on my summer bingo card. But in terms of what we saw from him on the court, what did you like? And then what do you think he's going to bring to this Spurs team?
Yeah, the Victor Britney thing was, I texted someone about it saying it was such an epitome of an American entertainment news cycle story. Nothing happened, but it became this gigantic
Do you even
incident.
think he knew who she was?
No, he's a 19-year-old kid from France. I think is part of it better than me. The gap in cultural lexicon between what someone pushing 30 is talking about compared to 19-year-olds, nothing. But in terms of on the court stuff, I wrote about it on Saturday in between the two games. I think the first game really showed, and the second game too. He scored 27 points. He had a pretty big effort in that comeback attempt they had. I forget who they played, honestly, off the top of my head, in that second game. Was that Portland? With Scoot?
Yes, it was supposed to be Scoot, yes.
Where, he's so skinny, he's going to get knocked off course a lot his rookie year. And I think that's okay.
Yeah.
The Spurs, from everything I've heard over the last year, look at what they've done the last 4 years. They're not exactly rushing to the postseason altar like all these other teams are, where you got Utah and Detroit and Orlando and Houston. All those teams expect to try to at least be in the play-in tournament conversation next year. So the fact that he is in the organization that coined load management, and they're so focused on player development. Brett Brown came back a year ago to really be the player development czar that he always was for the Spurs for, basically 2 decades. I think it's going to be okay that we're going to see him stumble a lot before he's running, to use a metaphor. But literally, he's stumbling out there a lot because even a 6'8", 240-pound wing forward has a lot more mass and a lot more strength than him. So it wasn't so shocking to see some of those guys be able to strip his handle, out-rebound him at times. But then you get the glimpses of in that second game where he had that putback dunk where he barely left the floor and no one had a chance of getting that ball. That's the kind of stuff where you're like, man, once he does add on a little bit more muscle, once he does kind of figure out how to throw his body against these types of bodies, because this isn't France. As much as that level of play wasn't college, the Summer League is also an elevated level of play from the G League Ignite that we both saw here, whatever that was, October. 8-9 months ago.
Yep. And I will say this, after last night's performance, he was a completely different player, and we saw it from the get-go. I was watching him in warm-ups, and he was joking around with the coaching staff, talking to his teammates. And then once the ball tipped, I saw him being more set in the offense. He was very familiar with the plays and, getting down in the screens, very, very comfortable. And then after the game, he had 27 and 12 yesterday. It looked very similar to what I saw from him all year in France for the Mets 92 and why they made a run to the title. And I was in the tunnel in the back yesterday talking to a few of his teammates. And, it was Devin Vassell, it was Jeremy Sohan, it was Keldon Johnson. And Keldon Johnson told me a story where he said, oh, yeah, we've already been in practice with him. And during 5-on-5 drill, he dunked on 2 people just off a putback, and we don't even know where it came from.
Yeah.
And we're just laughing at it. And then I'm talking to Blake Wesley, and he said, KP, he took a rebound and windmilled it like it was nothing. I was like, how'd he do that? So the fact that his own teammates are being shocked by what he's doing in practice, and we haven't even seen it come to fruition on the court. I know there's something coming. Everyone needs to chill. We need to chill on the bus talk. Yeah. Because he's not a bust. He's going to figure it out. Yeah. And when we look at who else was drafted past him, we have to talk about Scoot Henderson, I think, first and foremost, because what I saw between him versus Amen Thompson, that was probably some of the most high-level basketball we saw in the first day at Summer League.
For sure.
And definitely the 2 of them put everyone on notice, okay, you got Victor Wembanyama over here. Watch us play. Yeah. Look how we compete. And Scoot looks so comfortable because he's already played 2 years in the G League.
Yep.
And, obviously he went out with a shoulder injury. Amen Thompson went out with the ankle injury. They're done for the rest of the Summer League. But they were so productive in that first half and what we saw. And it was almost Victor who? Yeah. Watching the 2 guards compete. What did you see from them?
From Scoot, I was really kind of struck by how he seemed to be making a concerted effort to run the team.
Yeah.
To really be a table setter, to make sure he was, flaring out some passes to Shaedon Sharpe on the wing, to try to kind of pause his drive a little and wait to hit the roll man and stuff like that. I did see the tendency that he has, though, to get into the paint and try to do his little step back thing to his mid-range stuff, because he does seem to love.
He loves the mid-range.
He loves the mid-range. And people around him are like, that's his spot.
Yes.
That's his area. That's where he lives. So I'll be curious to see at the next level. This is, I think, an intermediate step, right? When the regular season comes and he really is running pick and roll after pick and roll after pick and roll, I'll be curious to see how naturally he is trying to be, because that's what makes him special, is that he is not just a table setter, but that balance of picking and choosing your spots, raising everybody else up. That's the kind of talent that you can't really teach. That is the real secret success of being a franchise centerpiece.
I feel like the learning curve, for Scoot versus Victor, he's going to be more productive early on than Victor is, because Victor needs to fill out. He's going to be banging down low. We saw him already get bodied by Kai Jones, and in the press conference afterwards, he shook it off and he just said, oh, he caught me on the roll. I was recovering. He wasn't even bothered by it.
And he's going to get targeted.
Oh,
like there's a ton of people who want to dunk on Victor Wembanyama's head. I can tell you
Shaden Sharp yesterday in the tunnel after the game, I was like, what'd you think of Victor? He's like, KP, I wanted that body so bad.
Yeah.
He's like, I was hunting for that. He's like, I'll get him in the season. So you're right. He is going to be a target. But for these guards, I mean, I feel like Amen Thompson, you know, we heard so much coming into this pre-draft process about overtime elite and how, you know, they don't have a lot of competition, and how are these two guards, Amen and Ausar Thompson, going to translate to the NBA? He looked just fine. Yeah. I mean, against Scoot, he put up 16 points and 5 assists before he was injured, and defensively he locked him down. Like Scoot was looking at the sideline like, who is this guy? Like, like I don't think he'd ever been defended that way. And, you know, you look at, I talked to some NBA guys and they're like, you know what, give overtime elite their flowers, like in terms of their player development. And he has a real shot to be one of the most productive guards in this class as well.
I think maybe we're going to jump the gun here to talk about Ausar a little too. But I'm going to say, because for me, I had not seen both those guys live yet. So
I've seen him like 20 times.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm laughing at that.
It's just a difference in our world. I've seen him on YouTube. I've seen him play on some streaming service. But like, I don't know, for listeners of the show and draft nicks who are dying on every KP word, like, I really do think that people don't recognize how important it is for any talent evaluator to see these guys in person.
Absolutely.
It's so much different than on a screen.
It's so different.
Sure, like you can watch some Pac-12 game on a Thursday night and notice Malachi Flynn is the actual prospect on Washington State, not Robert Franks like 5 years ago. But that's just like one idea that came to mind. But like not being in person, you don't see the body language. You don't see like how they move in space.
Yeah, exactly.
Like in an overall like team environment. So I was really curious to see both those guys, especially because of the lack of, you know, perceived talent that you mentioned. And first things first, like they're just huge. They made Scoot, Amen made Scoot look small. Right. And Scoot's built like a linebacker.
I mean, we got Amen Thompson 6'7", 215. You got Scoot Henderson 6'2", 6'3". Yeah. Built like a brick, but the height difference is totally. Yeah. You're right. It stands out for sure.
And they're filled out too. Both those kids made very, very, very impressive reads. They defend like hell.
Yes.
The one thing that is obviously a concern for both of them is the shooting.
Right, but Amen, he was stepping into like the one or two 3-point shots. Yeah. He was stepping into him without hesitation, and he knocked him down. Yeah. So that definitely is a positive sign, especially for a player that came in with such glaring issues about their shooting and their shot creation.
For sure. But I can say this, like there was definitely a buzz amongst people I was talking to before the Victor game, because that was the Scoot Amen game first. And people were like, I mean, I want to know what's real here. And the thought that like two teams in the top 5 picked these twin brothers back to back, like, this ain't no fluke. No. And we're seeing it here.
Absolutely. We'll talk about Ausar after the break, but I feel like we got to talk about the elephant in the room. Brandon Miller went number 2, hasn't been nearly productive as the other top 4 prospects. And when you look at what Charlotte was doing at number 2, I mean, obviously they went with best fit because they already have LaMelo Ball, but he struggled. I mean, he only had 11 points. Last game, I talked to him yesterday after their game, and you could tell he was frustrated. He was upset. There's a lot of ISO play. They can't really seem to get any rhythm going for their G League team.
Well, they don't have a point guard. That's not doing anybody any favors.
I know. Well, Nick Smith Jr., I mean, he's out here trying to be the point guard, but
trying is an accurate word to describe that.
I mean, Nick spent the time at Arkansas playing alongside Anthony Black, and so he's not really comfortable in that role.
Anthony Black looks good.
Anthony Black looked amazing. But back to Brandon Miller, I mean, if you're Charlotte, is it too soon for the I'm sorry, but is it too soon?
You're a Brandon Miller hater. Come on.
No, I'm not. I love Brandon Miller.
You're a Scoot lover.
I love Brandon. Okay. I've always said very good things about Brandon. I also love Scoot Henderson. Yeah. But if you're Charlotte, are you watching these games because he's now played 4 games? Are you watching these games? Are you watching the one game that Scoot Henderson had? And is there any buyer's remorse?
I can tell you the Hornets company line is, it's not exactly an ideal situation for him. We don't really have a playmaker. It's tough, to finally get back into 5-on-5 after not playing for so long, blah, 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 blah.
That's the company line for Brandon or for
Charlotte?
Oh, for Charlotte.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's no way that anyone here who believed in that pick so strongly, a couple weeks ago,
right,
is having buyer's remorse right now. I'm sure there's definitely like a little bit of like wincing, which you don't want to be feeling coming out of this. You want to walk out of this gym and fly back to the East Coast and be like, damn, that dude is going to be really good next to LaMelo Ball. I'm not saying that they're thinking that's not the case, but it's not you can't leave here as bullish as you were going in. And I always think back to something Sam Hinkie said to me years ago, which was that every time he thought about players going onto a court or going into some type of basketball activity, if they weren't getting better, they were getting worse. So the fact that there haven't been, like, even the fact that Victor turned an absolute dud of a first game into a bounce back effort in game 2, the cards in the deck hasn't exactly been dealt very well for Brandon out here, but you would like to see a little bit, because people forget maybe, this is such a stupid thing to say about Summer League, he was playing out in SAC. So it's not like he's only had a couple games out here.
Right.
And it's kind of been, and the shot looks smooth when it goes in, but like he's shooting like 30% from 3 right now. I don't have the numbers exactly in front of me, but I remember in the Victor game, he shot 3 for 10.
Yes. I mean, in the last game, he only had 11 points. And the game against Victor Wembanyama, where it was 1 versus 2, he had 16 and 11. So a little more productive, but I think he was 1 for 6 from 3.
Yeah.
He's definitely struggling from outside. But like you said, when they get that playmaker, and when I talked to Brandon during the draft, pre-draft process, like he and LaMelo were already building that chemistry. Like he went to LaMelo's house. He saw his car collection. Like LaMelo was hitting him up.
Which is a very big and very colorful collection.
Yeah, I'm sure. I haven't seen it personally.
I haven't seen it personally either, but I've heard the stories.
Yes, yeah. And even on draft night, it was LaMelo hitting up Brandon even before he's like, bro, we're going to be great together in the backcourt. So obviously LaMelo really wanted Brandon. And I don't know if it's the frustration for Brandon here where he's not playing with a genuine point guard. He's not playing with LaMelo.
Yeah.
And he's just trying to get those reps before he can get to the season. But not saying that like the frustration, like it's almost a good sign that there's frustration there because, you want that drive and you want that competitive edge in any player that you draft. So I think for Charlotte, you would rather want that than just being like, it's Summer League.
I'll say one quick positive note just to end it on with a cherry on top. The passing has been impressive. I didn't realize, because he's another player that I never saw play live. So to see like just like the simple like Lonzo type hit ahead passes in transition, or just the fact that he is an able and willing and like scanning passer. There's a difference between someone who just like, oh, the ball is swinging, like obviously I'm gonna kick it to the corner, versus someone who's looking to find cracks in the defense that he can slip a bounce pass through or what have you. So that's been good to see.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we talked about this year's number 2 pick. Before we go on to other players that are entering their rookie year, let's talk about last year's number 2 pick, Chet Holmgren. He sat out the entire season for an injury. He's back. People say he added 15 pounds. I don't know where. Yeah. I don't know where that came from, but he was the number 2 pick last year to Oklahoma City. This is also a player who went head-to-head with Victor Wembanyama in the U19s FIBA World Cup.
You love this story.
Oh my gosh.
This is a favorite story of yours.
I'm dying for this budding rivalry. And both of them, every time I ask them about it, they're shrugging it off like it's nothing. It was last year before the draft. I asked Chet Holmgren about Victor Wembanyama, and he's just like, I'm not giving you my scouting report on him, KP. And he was very bitter about it. And then Victor this year, when he came through after the draft, I asked him about Chet Holmgren, and he said, he's like, what rivalry? There's no rivalry, KP. I'm more upset, and I'm more excited to go against Jaden Ivey because he's the one that fouled me out in the championship game. But when you see Chet on the court again, I feel like people forgot about him.
Yeah.
They forgot, we all see Victor, but Chet is like another portion. He's like a 2.0 of that.
Yeah.
But here he looks very comfortable. He looks confident. He's running the floor well. He's shooting the ball well. What are your expectations for Chet this year? And especially now being his rookie year, kind of going up against Victor.
I'll just say this. Someone on the concourse yesterday came up to me and said, hey, do you know Chet Holmgren is plus 400 for Rookie of the Year right now? And I said, it's a pretty good bet. That's really it. Ben Simmons, Blake Griffin, there's been a lot of recent history of number one picks in those two guys, perspectives, but Chet number 2.
Right.
Definitely was a candidate for number 1.
Yeah.
They get hurt. They have a redshirt year. They come out and they look great.
I mean, what is it about the redshirt year? I mean, because you don't get any reps. You don't get any 5-on-5 reps.
I think it's the physical strength aspect that we just talked about with Victor.
Yep.
I think it's the part of just like the NBA schedule is so different than college. You get maybe 3 games, usually 2 in college, and you're just like over scouting and preparing, and your walk-ons wearing the pennies and they're masquerading as the other team, and conference play, you play everyone twice, and you get, we get you here, we get you at your place. The NBA, to wake up, go to shoot around, go back to the hotel. Are you going to have your meal? Are you going to take a nap? Are you going to meet with a massage therapist? Are you getting your hair cut?
Yeah.
What bus do you take? Every team takes 2 buses to the arena. You're a first bus guy. You're a second bus guy. What do you do pregame? Do you get a lift in? Do you work on your core? What's your post-game routine? Even though he wasn't playing, the fact that he's already been inside that apparatus for a while, it can be dizzying for someone.
Yeah.
So you have a massive head start when you come into actually playing from being in a traveling party and being part of a team for a year.
I mean, what do you expect from this OKC team? Because we hear about Sam Presti and he's like this magician in the way he builds teams.
He is highly regarded, yes.
And so we saw a little bit. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was NBA first team. Mm-hmm. You got Josh Giddey, who is definitely very productive. Great hair. Being very productive. And I'm sorry, Jalen Williams locking up LeBron James and all the best players in the NBA as a rookie last year. I mean, he's getting these gems, and they're all. I feel like he's just sitting there in the dark, just waiting for it all to come to fruition.
Don't forget about Isaiah Joe. Who
yes.
I know they're very high on there, and you can know that by just watching the big 2-hour press conference that Sam Presti does at the end of every season. And he mentioned Isaiah Joe 73 times. So I think they're pretty happy with him. I had a fun question I posed to people at dinner last night. If the Heat are somehow unable to land Damian Lillard, who do you think has a better record, Miami or OKC? And a lot of people said OKC. I really do think they're going to be in that 45 win area. Who knows? Maybe even more. I think they're going to be legitimately competing for a playoff spot. Not the TM play and push of our no cap room days, but I think they have a real chance at being a legitimate playoff team. I do.
Okay, let me ask you this: you got San Antonio in the West. You've got OKC in the West. You got Victor Wembanyama. You've obviously got Chet Holmgren. And
you want this rivalry to be a thing?
I'm dying for this to be a thing. Who wins a championship first?
It's a very good question. I mean, I think you have to take the Thunder. They're so much further ahead in their rebuild. Who knows?
Yeah.
I mean, Keldon Johnson's a great player. I say good player. Great. I don't want to throw. People could maybe take I don't know, not offense, but saying someone's great. He's a very good player.
Yes.
Starter level player. Devin Vassell, starter level player. Outside of that, I mean, Trey Jones, starter level point guard.
Right.
Got paid a little bit this year as an RFA. Those guys aren't Shai.
Yeah.
Giddey.
Yep.
Jalen Williams. I mean, Lou Dort, who's proven himself to be an elite defender. I just think they're further ahead. And I think the fact that, this is going to sound insane, but the fact that Mark Daigneault has been one of the guys growing with that team all at once. It sounds like a little cheesy, but I think that's a real thing. Like, I think they're all growing together versus Pop is obviously Pop.
Yes.
Cut that, John Gennaro. Put a nice little social video of me saying Pop is obviously Pop. But, like, this 74-year-old guy who's, yes, a sage, like, veteran, one of the greatest coaches in professional sports history, let alone the NBA. Like, the energy of being re-energized by, like, teaching the young kids, that's not, like, hey, we're all building this and everyone's doubting us and we're going to go compete and win way earlier than people expect us to.
Yeah.
Those are just different, tones that I think really matter in like as you're planting the seeds of a culture and watching them bloom a couple years later into a rebuild.
Well, I mean, like you said, a couple years. We're so many years from that even actually coming to fruition. They're battling Denver in the West. We still got Steph Curry in the wings and everything. But I'm sure this is something. I mean, obviously, I love talking about it. But we're going to take a quick break and come back with some more Summer League standouts. We'll be right back. Welcome back to On the Clock. I'm Krysten Peek, joined by Jake Fischer. We're live at the Thomas and Mack Center in Las Vegas at Summer League. One of my favorite times of the year. I don't know about you. You're probably exhausted coming from the finals and then the draft and free agency.
I am tired.
Yes.
I am tired. But we're here and
you see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, being here is good. There are many people who want to be a part of this NBA, whatever you want to call it, circus, that this is. I mean, there's clearly a circus going on behind us. And like knowing and having been someone who has come here on my own dime and stayed at the Virgin Hotel across the street and walked in 110-degree heat to save cab fare.
Oh my gosh.
Like being here and doing this and seeing people, it's good.
Do you know what's so funny to me is like I come straight from Peach Jam to Summer League. And when I'm at Peach Jam, I mean, it's not only, ridiculous LeBron James and Rajon Rondo, CP3, they're all coaching from the sidelines. But I get a glimpse at like the talent that we're going to see here, in 2-3 years.
Yeah.
And it's always that like full circle moment. It's like, oh my gosh, I just saw you in Augusta, Georgia. Now you're playing at Summer League for an NBA team. But we don't have to talk about Peach Jam.
Well, because of all that, let me ask you about a bunch of these other dudes.
Yes.
Because you've been following them for so long. And as you said, to like see them graduate and now have their first day of school.
Yes.
I'm curious about your perspective because the first guy we have here in our rundown, actually, no, we'll go to the second-year players first because, early in the Rockets-Blazers game, I was sitting with someone and I said, man, I'm a little worried about how Jabari Smith is not exerting himself into this action right now. And then that
what happened? What happened? It's like he heard you.
That immediately changed within like 30 seconds of me saying it. And maybe, I think it was like the second half he came out and just started doing Jabari Smith things that made people think he was the obvious shoo-in for the #1 pick a year ago. So him, Tari Eason, to me, looked obviously like second-year players out there. What was your...
It was unbelievable. I mean, I know, and I said this, I put a tweet out, I said, I know people come here to see the rookie years or the rookie players in their first year. And if you're a Lakers fan, if you're a Rockets fan, if you're anybody, you're coming here to see, okay, how can they make my team better?
Yeah.
But what I love most about Summer League is you see these second-year players in the first 2 games completely dominate.
Yeah.
And we saw that with Jabari Smith Jr. We saw that with Tari Eason. I think the two of them combined for 65 points in the last game, in the second game. And Jabari Smith Jr. hitting that game winner in the first game, which was unbelievable. I know the entire arena was sold out and everyone came to see Victor, but they got a complete treat with Jabari Smith hitting that game winner, against Portland. And for him, it's like he was doing a little bit of everything. You could see his confidence cooking. Like he hit step back threes over James Wiseman, who's 7'1", turn around to his teammates who's sitting courtside and said, he can't guard me.
Yeah.
This guy can't guard me. And so I always love seeing that. And he had a good response when reporters asked him, they're like, why are you playing? Mm-hmm. And he said, listen, we have a lot of young players We didn't have a great record last year.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't I want to get reps with these guys?
Yeah.
And I think it's very smart for him to do that because we're seeing his confidence grow. We're seeing Tari Eason, especially his confidence. Like this is it's like high level glorified AAU basketball. So I knew Tari was going to get his, but just seeing, his defensive versatility and how he's growing in that aspect.
Yeah.
And also his shot creation off the block, I think are steps in the right direction for that young Houston Rockets team. And then when they, in the first game, when they saw what Amen Thompson could do, they're like, okay. And not only that, Cam Whitmore, who they got at 20, which, I know the Rockets liked in the lottery, and he slipped all the way to 20 because of, some medical issues that they saw, in his medical report. But it's exciting. Yeah. It's exciting for the Rockets.
I will say, maybe this is something I shouldn't say, but I think Cam falling, the medical stuff, I think might be a convenient narrative to say that instead of the fact that I think most of the negative feedback I heard from people in the aftermath was about the interview process.
I heard a mixture of both. I heard from a few teams that said, "Oh no, KP, there are some hesitations from our medical staff that when they're looking at it." And then when Cam addressed it at the draft, he said, "I know my body. I don't know what they're talking about. I feel fine. I feel 100%." But I also did hear different things about his interview process and just the intel in terms of how he was as a teammate at Villanova and needing to be in the right situation. And that was a lot of cause for concern for teams and why they kept passing on him. Yeah. But the fact that, the Rockets got him when they liked him at 4 and they still got him at 20. And he's been very productive, at Summer League. He had 21 points in the last game. Yeah. And is kind of sliding right in there as a secondary guard. He feels very comfortable as the primary or secondary ball handler. Yeah. I think it bodes well for Houston. And every time he would cut or he would do something and I'd see something with his knees, I'd be like, "Oh, is this it? Is this it?" And he was fine. Yeah. He's fine.
Yeah. One guy who's definitely fine. That his name is in all caps on my sheet.
I put him in all caps, yes.
Keyonte George, who I did not see live. I have never seen him play basketball at all until I saw him out here. But as we talked about on the clock before the draft, his charisma, his swagger was on full display in the interview process in the green room, day before media availability. And that's translating out here on the court. He's been the name I've heard people mention of all the not top 4 guys, the one that people are talking about the most.
He is a bucket getter. And I feel bad because, we're here at Thomas and Mack all day. So you get to the late games and you're like, "Oh, do I really need to stay?" You see the fans kind of dwindle. I got dinner. Oh, I got stories to write. I'm not going to. So I went down, I ran into Keontae's mom, Krysten, and I watched the first half with her. And at halftime, it's like, I can't leave. This is unbelievable. He had 33 points, 10 assists in the first outing. And Jazz Twitter, y'all need to chill. Because I was seeing, is Keyonte George too good for Summer League? If anybody watched anything what he did at Baylor or in his high school career, it's we know he's a bucket getter. We knew he was going to shine in this sort of scenario.
I saw you tweet or write something at one point Keyonte George has never thought that Keyonte George can't make this shot.
It's absolutely true. I mean, he was at Chris Paul's camp last August alongside Jalen Hood-Schifino, alongside Anthony Black, playing against CP and a few other pros. And Chris Paul turned to me. He's like, "Damn." It's that kid, he loves to get himself a bucket. And I was like, yeah. And he's got that confidence. Yeah. So going into that, I have heard, just through other rumblings after the draft that Danny Ainge was zeroed in on Keyonte George.
He liked him at 16.
Very, very long time. Key is someone, he looks great. He got his body right, from he gained 14 pounds at Baylor.
14, not 15.
He said he told me 14. I don't know.
Everyone's got the 15 pounds of muscle, you know. So maybe this is like a little zig.
I don't know if this is 14 pounds of muscle. He said he was ordering Uber Eats and takeout.
There you go.
You know, towards the end of the season when he had his ankle injury, so he got his body right. He said he's feeling the best he's ever did. I was like, oh, shocker! Going into the draft, all of a sudden you're in the best shape of your life and like dominating summer league. You know, and talking to the Utah Jazz scouting team, they're super high on him and Taylor Hendricks.
Yeah. And
they're just like, okay, P, we told you. And I was like, yeah, he looks great. I don't know what to tell you. Like, good job. Good job.
The Jazz are very
him.
Happy with the draft.
Yes.
I can tell you that.
Yes. Yeah. But he's a bucket. This is the right stage for him. His best friend, Anthony Black from Dallas, was also watching him, you know, and I love the relationships that these kids have. I'm sorry. I'm like a proud auntie. Yeah. Like, off the court where they're supporting one another at summer league. Like Anthony Black,
you're like a camp counselor.
I am. Yes, I am a camp counselor. But like Anthony Black coming to support him, you know, Jet Howard as well. I mean, like it's just kind of, they want to see everybody win. Yeah. And that's also what I love about summer league. And not only like the established players coming back to support their young players and seeing, like, I remember talking to Cade Cunningham, asking him about Ausar Thompson, and he's like, KP, he's a player. Yeah. And
how much more do you want to talk about Ausar on today's show?
We can talk about, I mean, I did an entire podcast on Amen and Ausar Thompson, so we can talk about Ausar as much as you want.
Give me a quick, 1 minute assessment of his performance so far.
I will say this. I think he slides in alongside Jaden Ivey and Cade Cunningham better than any guard that was in that range, that 4 to 8 range. And the way that he can complement them and also make plays. He's got a deadly first step off the dribble. He's one of the best on-ball defenders, has no problem guarding both the 1 and 2 in the backcourt. Yeah. And he, like you said, like he's long, 6'7", and I already love like the little rivalry and the little digs that they're giving each other as brothers, like where somebody asks a man, they're like, oh, well, too bad you're hurt. You would have been going up against a pretty good player the next game. And Amen, without any hesitation, deadpan, was like, I don't think he's that good of a player. Like talking about his brother. I love that. But I think the two of them, Ausar is a huge pickup for Detroit. Like they've got a great young budding front court with Jalen Duren, who they took last year. Obviously James Wiseman, and taking Ausar and plugging him into the wing alongside Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey is going to be really fun to watch.
I remember at whatever time of year, because they didn't make the playoffs, so it's hard to remember what happened in April, June for non-playoff teams. Whenever Troy Weaver gave his end of season address, one thing he was very clear about was that the Pistons were on it to target wing defenders. And they liked Isaiah Livers, obviously, but Bogdanovich does a lot for them spacing-wise, but he wanted to find more two-way wings. And I forget which beat writer wrote it, because the Pistons have such a big, very good beat writer core with James Edwards and Amari Sankofa and Mike Curtis. Shout out to those guys. But one of them I saw on my feed wrote that Troy then said post-draft, maybe sometime even this week, that he was viewing Ausar like an Andre Iguodala was for Clay and Steph. And that's a really nice
It's very accurate, yeah. Yeah, just kind of that do-it-all player. I mean, one thing I'll say about the Twins is they want to do anything and everything it takes to win a basketball game. I mean, even when they were talking about, when did you first pick up a basketball? And Amen is talking about, we were at a YMCA tournament, blah, blah. And then Ausar, he chirps in, oh, no, but we beat you in the championship. Like, they're talking about this back when they were 8 years old, you know? So I think they're going to be two special players. I mean, definitely no hesitation on either one of them in terms of where they fell in the draft. Yeah. That's the reason why they went 4 and 5 for sure.
Okay. All right. Let's go some lightning round to wrap this thing up, because Brett Rader just told us to say that. Lakers second round picks.
Yes.
Colin Castleton, Max Lewis, hit me.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Colin, 4-year player from University of Florida. I remember Mike White, his coach before he went to Georgia. He pulled me aside when Colin was a sophomore and was like, KP, he's going to have a productive year in the NBA. He might not get drafted, but he'll be very productive. And he has been. He had 21 and 14 in last games. But I love Max Lewis, 6'7" shooter, one of the best shooting guards in this draft class. He came off the bench. The Lakers picked him up with the 40th draft pick. He added about 10 pounds during the pre-draft process. I don't know why I'm so plugged in.
You're very plugged in on the added pounds.
I really am. But when you see people that are so skinny, but he had 12 points off the bench yesterday, 2 for 2 from three-point line. Really good, backcourt chemistry going on between him and Jalen Hood-Schifino, who was their first-round pick.
We got Jalen Wilson next.
He's one of those players who was sitting in that late first round, early second round in a lot of mock drafts. He didn't have a great NBA draft combine. He fell to the second round with the Brooklyn Nets. And, he's kind of been that stable Kansas player that we all expected him to be. I thought he would be more of a match in Denver playing alongside Christian Brown, his teammate. But he fell to the Brooklyn Nets. The Nets love him. Yeah. And in his last outing, he had 18 points and 8 rebounds. So he's feeling very comfortable in this summer league setting.
So we got one more player here who at the combine went off for like 90 seconds, just blitzing from three-point land. And he's been doing it here too. Tristan Vucevic.
Yes.
What do we got?
I mean, these international players, we don't see a lot of them, obviously, as NBA fans or NBA writers. And so to get eyes on him, like you said, we saw him at the combine. He kind of had that spark, but he fell to the second round. And he kind of made a point saying, he's like, no, I'm going to show people what I'm about. And that's exactly what he's done with Washington Wizards alongside their lottery pick, Bilal Coulibaly, who has been very productive as well. But Tristan, I think, has felt a little bit more comfortable. He's not turning the ball over, and he's had, 14 and 8 in his last game. So a very, very productive outing and as a second-round pick for the Washington Wizards.
We got the guys in Denver that you were just mentioning you wanted to see.
Listen, like Denver, they're so good at scouting in the season, and they find these gems. And, when we look at Jalen Pickett and Hunter Tyson was amazing in their first outing. And, he's a 5-year player from Clemson and had 16 points in that first game. Jalen Pickett being very productive. It's a fun little Denver group, and you've got almost their entire team here supporting them. We see Michael Porter Jr. We see, obviously, Jokic isn't here. He's over in Serbia. But I want to say everybody else from their starting 5 is here supporting their summer league team.
What about, he's not on here, but Strather, is that how you pronounce it?
Julian Strather. Julian Strather. Yeah, he was the one that they picked up in the first round, and he's a Vegas kid, so this is a homecoming to him. And he's got a really pretty jumper, and we're seeing that on display. Like you got these Denver guards, you got Peyton Watson and Christian Brown who are creating for him.
Colin Gillespie, shout out. Speaking of redshirt rookies.
I know. Colin Gillespie has been amazing as a facilitator, that Villanova guard, that feel for it. So this Nuggets team, I mean, if you're flipping through the channel, late night you see the Denver Nuggets on Summer League. It's a fun group to watch, for sure.
How the Nuggets replaced Bruce Brown minutes-wise has been a talking point here. They replaced him with all these young guys. Yeah. So it's going to be an interesting thing to keep an eye on and monitor this year, the rising and falling of their minutes and their role. I mean, Michael Malone with Michael Porter Jr. had a kind of love-hate relationship with putting him in, so I'll be curious to see how long of a leash, how short of a leash he gives some of those dudes. The last name here is a name who I actually went and watched. Yes. I watched a quarter before we came and taped it. Amani Bates with the Cleveland Cavaliers. I was a little distracted watching Kenny Hustle and David Roddy play bully ball, give and go, up and down the court together. That was very summer league to watch.
Like the front court in that, I mean, like, what is the combined weight for that front court duo?
It's probably combined 7 times as much as Imani Bates weighs, because that dude is skinnier than Victor Wembanyama.
I know. Well, Imani, I mean, he's another one. He's just like, oh, I'm working on my body. I've really seen some improvement in that. And I was like, where? You look the exact same from the time you were 16. Yeah. He was 6'9", shoots, out of the ball. And he said to me, like, he's kind of turned a corner in maturity-wise, and I think Cleveland is the right fit for him. And he said, he's like, I was so overhyped as a player.
He said that?
Yeah, he's like, wow. I understand. I was so overhyped as a player. And I'm just now trying to show that I belong, and I need someone to give me a chance and open the door, and I'm going to walk through it and show everyone what I'm about. And so he's a little bit older now. Mind you, like he reclassified up. So he was, you know, a little bit of an immature freshman, sophomore at the college level. And now this is really his true draft class. And we're seeing a little bit more confidence with him. He had 16 points in the first game. He had 21 points in the game or the quarter that you just watched last game.
It was about 9 minutes and 30 seconds.
And he hit 3 threes in a row.
Yeah.
You know, and kind of got Cleveland fans really going. So, you know, when you take a swing like a player like Amani Bates, 6'9", shoot the ball, very young, you can't write him off.
Yeah.
And I think the Cavs really kind of got a steal in him in the sense where he's going to grow up a lot in that system, and he's a bucket getter.
Yeah.
I love watching him play.
That's it. That's our lightning round. That's our list.
All right, well, that will do it for us. Thank you guys for listening and joining us. Thanks to Jake for giving us some of your time. I know we're all busy here at Summer League. Yeah. You can follow him and me and everyone on this podcast over on Threads, the new social platform, right?
The fact we're doing, and Twitter. Let's keep Twitter alive so I don't have to also build a whole following on another app.
Thanks to John and Stone for working hard to make this podcast sound and look great. And thank you all for listening, and we'll see you again next time.